Good morning. Today is Friday, June 9th, 2023. Yesterday we spoke about Moshe's lowest moment when he is overwhelmed by the petty complaining of the Jewish people as they travel through the desert. Today I want to focus on what God did to help Moshe through this crisis, because it is a blueprint for us in what we can do in similar circumstances. But first, let's focus on a shattering statement that Moshe makes in the midst of his despair. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, Vayomer Moshe el Hashem, Moshe says to God, Lama hari osa lavdecha, why are you making it so terrible for me, your servant? Have to lead the Jewish people, they're always complaining. Lama lo matzasi chen beinecha, why have I not found favor in your eyes? Lasum es masa kol ha'am hazeh alai, that you place this very difficult burden of leading these people on me. We quoted this verse yesterday, but it continues now. Ha'anochi harisi es kol ha'am hazeh? Imanochi Iladatiyu? Did I give birth to these people? Are they my children? Are they my babies? Ki somar elai, that you should say to me, Se'eu b'cheikecha, hold them in your arms, kasher yiseh ha'omen es hayoneg, just like a mother will hold a newborn baby and takes care of every single need of a newborn baby. Is that what you expect me to do with these people? That's quite incredible. But Rabbi Jonathan Sacks points out that God never uses those words. God never says to Moshe, treat the Jewish people as if you're a baby, a newborn baby, and you've got to take care of every single need of them, just like a mother takes care of an infant baby. God never even implied such a thing. Yes, God asks Moshe to lead the Jewish people. He tells Moshe what to do, but he doesn't tell Moshe how to lead them. He doesn't say anything about Moshe's leadership style. And so what it appears from this pasuk is the Torah is telling us that the way Moshe conceived of his role was part of the problem. He conceived of this role as, I have to carry them in my arms like a nurse carries an infant. Explains Rabbi Sacks, this is the language of leader as parent. Or, to use a phrase that's been discussed by modern scholars, the great man theory of leadership. This is discussed by the scholars Gustav Le Bon and Sigmund Freud, who talk about a type of leader who is strong, who is persuasive, who is clear, who seems to say to his people, leave it to me. All you have to do is follow what I say and obey what I say, and it's going to be all right. And that seems to be the type of leader that Moshe thought he needed to be. He seems to have thought, based on this verse, that he needed to be the people's father and mother and nursemaid. He had to be the doer, the problem solver. He needed to be omniscient, omnipotent. If something needs to be done, Moshe seems to feel it's for the leader, in Moshe's case, turning to God and asking for his help, but for Moshe ultimately to do it. But the problem with this is that if the leader is a parent, then the followers remain children. They're totally dependent on the leader. They don't develop any skills on their own. They don't acquire any sense of responsibility. And they don't have any self-confidence that would come from that responsibility. So, for example, if the leader is not there even for a moment, like when Moshe was gone a little bit longer than the people expected on Mount Sinai, they panic because They don't know what happened to him, and they can't conceive of existing without him because they have not been given any tools to be able to take responsibility for themselves. And so in that case, they make a golden calf. And in our Torah portion, when Moshe feels that he can no longer be that great leader to hold them in his arms like a newborn baby, he collapses. But here's what's fascinating. What's fascinating is God's response. Because God does not say to Moshe, okay, Moshe, cheer up. It's going to be okay. You'll get through it. You're bigger than this. Don't worry. That's not what God says. What God says instead is something very, very practical, something that is a tremendous lesson for every single one of us as well. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe. God says to Moshe, Esveli shivim ish miziknei Yisrael. I want you, Moshe, to gather together 70 people from amongst the elders of the Jewish people. Asher yodata ki hem ziknei ha'am v'shotrav, and 70 people that you know that they have leadership abilities. V'lakachta osam el ohel moed v'hisyatzvu sham imach. Let them come to the Mishkan, to the sanctuary, and they will be there together with you. V'yaradati, and I will descend, God says. V'dibarti imchad sham, I will speak with you there. Remember, God speaks to Moshe peh el peh, like we discussed last night, face to face. V'atzalti min haruach asher alecha v'samti aleihem, and I will take some of the Spirit, my Spirit, that I have placed on you, and I will share it with them. V'nasu itcha b'masa ha'am, and they will share together with you the burden of leading the people, v'lo tisa'ata levadecha, and you will not have to do it alone. It's an amazing, incredible response, because it's as if God is saying to Moshe, don't try to be the great leader. Don't try to do it alone. Even you, Moshe, the greatest prophet, you're still a human being. And you need the help of other people. So choose associates who you respect. Don't be in isolation. Don't do it all yourself. Have friends. Have colleagues who can share the burden. Now, what's interesting is we don't even know what these 70 leaders did to help Moshe in leading. In fact, there is no mention anywhere in the Torah of what they actually did. But simply being with Moshe was part of the cure. And here's what's amazing. Because in this passage, God speaks to Moshe as a friend. And this is a fundamental concept. We've discussed this a number of times. We understand God as a creator, as a lawgiver, as a redeemer, the Lord of history, sovereign of the universe, all those capital terms. But the Torah insists God is also a close, tender, loving friend. As the famous verse says in Tehillim, God heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds. Famous pasuk in the Isaiah, Yeshayahu Hanavi. As a mother comforts her child, so will I, God, comfort you. Famous verse in Tehillim, Hashem roi lo echsar, God is my shepherd. He walks with me. The famous verse in Ashrei, Karov Hashem lakol, God is close to all who call out to him. And it helps. Moshe is comforted. Right after this narrative, Moshe appears to be a changed person. When he is told by Yehoshua, his disciple Yehoshua, that there may be a challenge to his leadership because some of these 70 people are now prophesying, he says to Yehoshua, what, you're jealous on my behalf? Don't be jealous on my behalf. Everybody should be prophesying. Let's have everybody as a leader. I don't need to be the only one. And later in our Torah portion, when his sister and his brother, Miriam and Aaron, begin to criticize him, we discussed this last night, he doesn't respond. He doesn't get angry. In fact, when God punishes Miriam for what she says, Moshe prays for her. And that is where the Torah tells us this insight, V'ha'ish Moshe Anav ma'od mikol ha'adam. Moshe is the most humble of men in the entire world. So what the Torah is showing us in this portion is the psychodynamics of emotional crisis. And the most important thing that the Torah is teaching us is that in the midst of despair, don't be alone. Now, in this case, God performs the role of comforter, of friend. It is God that lifts Moshe from this pit of despair and depression. And the way he does it is that God speaks directly to Moshe's concern. He tells him that Moshe will not have to lead alone. There'll be others to help him. And this is the essential principle. Our sages say, a prisoner cannot release themselves from prison. We need someone else to help lift us out of despair. Maybe it is by the advice that they will give us, or maybe it's just like the Shivim Zekanim, like the 70 elders. Maybe it's just being there and standing side by side. And that's why Judaism in general is so insistent on not leaving a person alone, especially at a time of crisis or depression or anxiety. This is the root of the values, the principles we have of visiting a person who is sick, comforting a mourner, including those who are lonely and vulnerable in our celebrations, in our observances of holidays and Shabbos. Offering hospitality where our sages tell us it is greater than receiving the divine presence. Because that's what a person needs at that time, and we are able to do that for each other. God was Moshe's friend in Moshe's darkest hour. God gives him comfort through that friendship, and that is a model for us to help ourselves or those we love in our or their darkest hour. My friends, I wish you a great day and a wonderful Shabbos, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.